Hello and welcome to Gully to Gully. Not lots going on the cricket field, so not much to discuss on the field, but as always, lots going on off the field. We've obviously had the India Sri Lanka series, so we'll discuss that. But lots going off the field, lots going on off the field for Pakistan cricket. So of course we'll touch on that. And I've got Moin here to discuss. Moin, first things first, India and their dominant win over Sri Lanka. This is, I think they're come back from the dead in all three games, reminiscent of Australia of the 2000s.
Absolutely. This is like the juggernaut that we all saw coming. It should have probably come a few years earlier, but they finally got there. I mean, I think of Australia not just in the early 2000s, but for most of their history, they just found ways of winning from any situation, right? It's whether that's you put it down to belief, whether you put it down to skill. I think it's a bit of both, and it's just mental strength more than anything that just sees them through. They wait for the opposition to wither under the pressure and they just capitalize, right? And I think we've talked about this a few times. It's about winning moments. India have now understood that, and they're probably at par based on this on current form with Australia when it comes to that, right? As long as you win the important games, even if you win less than 50% of the game, you're going to win, right? It happened against Pakistan. It happened against, well, a number, I think it was Pakistan and even to an extent South Africa. It's just those moments that they knew that they had to just cash in on. And it's just that instinct that, and it's not one person, it's an entire team that gels and feels the pulse on the cricket game very well. Now, look, so I think that's really, really impressive. Now, I will say that it is Sri Lanka. Sorry, Sri Lankan fans. I, unfortunately, there has been a big drop in quality in that team. Not too dissimilar, I'd say, from a chaos around cricket administration standpoint as what we're used to at home. But yeah, I mean that's just a slight pinch of salt. Whether a better team could lose from those winning positions, tough to say. But I can think
Yeah.
of many that can find ways of losing. So I mean, full marks to India, and Gambhir has started on a winning note, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is the new GG India, right, where they win pretty much from any situation. What was obviously you mentioned Sri Lanka, how they lost in every single match. They lost like 6, 7 wickets for 30 something runs after a good start. So yeah, obviously you had Sri Lanka and their quality, but I mean, in the last game, you had Sky bowling the last over and defending 6 runs to take it to a super over. Things like that you don't really expect, right? But maybe this is the new India where everyone bats and everyone bowls. Rinku
Which is
Singh bowling the
interesting. I'm just
Bradford
going to
over.
interject there, right? That's quite interesting because we were actually criticizing the impact player rule in the IPL in that it's going to be the death of all rounders in Indian cricket, right? But yet now you have everybody decide, oh yeah, I'll twirl my arm. Oh yes, I'll pick up the bat and go in. So maybe we're wrong. Maybe impact players are
Yeah,
create that rule is creating what I call maybe not all rounders, but self sufficient players. What I mean by that is, yes, they may not be equal with bat or ball or whatever, but they're able to hold their own where required. Maybe that's the trend. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, but bowling a crucial final over in a T20 game. I mean, it's crucial. It's a bilateral series. You can debate that, but still, it's a massive thing to do. And to defend 6 runs, for a spinner, part-time spinner, commendable effort. So yeah, look, I mean, it's. I think we've said enough about India over the last few weeks. How good they've been professionally and the fitness and all of those things, their mentality, their never say the attitude. I'm not sure what much more I can say uh, about that. I'm sure a lot of our fans in the comments will add to that in any case. So
Yeah,
I
man.
think there is
But
much more.
the one thing I'm reminded of is, you know what Rahul Dravid said, his parting words of wisdom to Gautam Gambhir. They asked, "What is your one piece of advice?" And he said, "Smile a little." He actually said it. You can Google it. He said, "Just smile a little. You'll be surprised how much it'll surprise people. It'll catch them off guard." Now I don't know whether that's a dig at Gautam Gambhir because he looks quite serious. But I think it's more a general comment because it's quite a stress. I mean, it's probably the most stressful job
Yeah,
in global cricket, to coach the Indian team due to the weight of expectation. So maybe smiling during periods of stress can help, bring a team's morale up. I don't know, but I couldn't help but sort of smirk a little, because I was picturing Gautam Gambhir's, like, intense, highly
yeah,
focused expressions, and I'm sure
yeah,
this series would have given him something to smile about. But I was watching, I was looking out for it. The post match presentation. Finally, the smile came in when they were posing for the trophy, and they asked him to come in. Oh, 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 there it is, there it is. You know, I don't know, like, I mean, it's what will be most interesting to see, right? And this is why I think Gautam Gambhir has a very important role, and his role will only become more important as time goes on and as the senior greats, part ways with the game, right? So it's that transition that's so critical to India's hopes of remaining a juggernaut and a force to be reckoned with. When we start, like when Gambhir is, starts, it'll be about man management, keeping taking a step back. If he's smart enough, that's the right thing to do, and let everybody go about their business as they've been so successful at doing. But over time, it will get, I think, a bit more important. His role will become, but it'll also become a bit easier. He will find it easier to mold younger players than it will be to sort of try and control the senior players who, some of whom he's had beef with in the past. His role will change, right? He is going to be the flag bearer, and that little, almost the bridge and the connection point between this India and the transitionary India.
yeah. It's going to be very interesting to see how that eventually pans out. But exciting times for them, and yeah, the signs are positive that they kind of pretty much 3-0 against Sri Lanka again with probably not their strongest team. So yeah, good signs. But speaking of India, Sri Lanka, and India dominating them, there is obviously one little bit of news that didn't go India's way, which is the women's Asia Cup final. After India dominated pretty much every team, um, I guess it happens in T20s, right? If one a couple of good
100%.
knocks and you're out of it. And we're discussing just before as well how the gap in women's cricket is so much between England, Australia, India at times, and the rest. India were pretty much their favorites, but won a couple of good innings, and Sri Lanka over the line, champions of the Asia Cup.
Yeah, I mean, it's an upset, right? I mean, whichever way you cut it, it's an upset, whether it's T20 or not. Yes, the upsets are more common in T20 cricket, but I think India were overwhelming favorites. And look, they are, I think, the clearly the best Asian team that's able to compete in some conditions with England and Australia. Now, as it happened, obviously losing the final, not too dissimilar to the 23 ODI Men's World Cup, where they dominated every game and then they lost in the final hurdle. And unfortunately, they don't, come back with any silverware. But look, I think speaking of women's cricket, something needs to be done to address that gap. And unfortunately, there's not much a central governing body can do. Part of it is due to the investment by local boards in the game for women, some of it due to cultural sort of norms that need to be broken down, some due to due to a perceived lack of importance in women's cricket or lack of spectator value. And all these notions are becoming increasingly archaic. Like if you look, at the Asia Cup, you saw some crowds. I think in some games there were more than others, but still, far away from what the men's game is. But if you look at an England game, or a game in England, people come out to support. Like the crowds are pretty, maybe not 100% full, but decently full, right? And that goes a long way. Unfortunately, societies, I think somebody mentioned in our comments earlier, and I think we've mentioned this in one of our very early videos. how good a cricket team is and how good is just a reflection of the infrastructure and the society at large, right? And I think that's never been more pronounced than women's cricket. There used to be a time when it used to be like, oh, by the way, but now I think the fact that, like, I can speak about Pakistan women's cricket that's lagging severely behind. It's one. It's coming to a point where it's a big concern, right? And it's unfortunate that when all your big cricket board officials talk about the next most important things, at least in Pakistan and many other boards, I'm sure women's cricket doesn't feature in the top three or four. When actually, out of all of Pakistan's wars in cricket, if you actually take a step back and think about it, women's cricket is right up there, right? I mean, there's a lot of talent, but there's just not enough importance given, right? And just changing a coach, bringing a coach doesn't help matters, especially not in women's cricket where there needs to be a grassroots and a movement and a more institutional change in how it's perceived, right, and viewed. And I just don't think we're going to do it, at least in the foreseeable future. I think a lot of cricketing boards, even, I mean, we talk a lot about South Asia, but even if you look at the other, like, the West Indies, for example, they used to be pretty strong. I remember was it 2009 T20 World Cup that they did pretty well. I can't recall. I think one of them they did, but haven't been that consistent. It's mainly England, Australia, right? And
Yeah,
like it's almost a foregone conclusion who plays the final in these tournaments. So
yeah,
I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, right? You need more
yeah,
people to watch in order for cricket to develop in these other geographies, but yet at the same time, you need the
yeah,
women's cricket to be less of a foregone conclusion of a final between England and Australia to get people to watch. It's a tough one.
yeah. Yeah, look, I think Pakistan has its own problems in sports overall. So I think that's the wider challenge. And speaking of challenges, I guess in Pakistan cricket, the latest news coming out, the two bits of ridiculous news coming out. One, former captain, fast bowler Waqar Younis
Former
becoming
coach, three-time coach, two-time bowling coach, one-time assistant
as
coach,
a,
two-time head coach. But you, how many times does someone need to fail before you realize he's not the man for the job? I hope I'm wrong, but on
for what
one
job?
hand,
They've created a new job for him, right? So it's not like some a job. They've created a new role.
yeah, just for him. And I don't know what it is. I honestly don't know what it is about Vakayu. Maybe he's well connected. Maybe he does interview well. Maybe there's something he says. But for people to look past his record, look, I've nothing against Waqar Younis. I think, if actually someone opened, like looked at it, they're like, actually, 2011, we reached a semi final. Fine. But that's been the best it's been, right? Yes, the test team was successful, but that's largely down to Misbah, right? But where he had a big role to play in the ODI team and sort of in the early 2010s, between 10 and 15, the record is there to speak for itself. And the same is there when he was bowling coach under Misbah, post the 2019 World Cup. The record is there for everybody to see, right? As soon as he left, suddenly Pakistan had a resurgence in international cricket for a brief period under Ramiz Raja. So it's one of those where on one hand, you look at India, who are so clear in who they're selecting, and I mean they're going places, and Pakistan just keep looking behind, back, back, back. They're just bringing in people from the past. You know, there's writing on the wall, and then there's this, and you can't get like I was shocked. I almost spat out what I was eating at the time. I was like, what? you know, I much rather like okay if it was Misbah or if it was someone who has maybe tried once and not succeeded, and maybe you could say in retrospect Misbah did bring in some fresh talent, whatever, fine. But it's a four-time tested coach, and it's not like we are devoid of people. What upsets me is it's like a little circus. It's revolving doors. One person
Yeah,
goes, someone else is brought back. Then the other person next, I'll see Amir Sohail coming back. Then Harun Rashid, and then Javed Miadad will come back for his upteen stint as coach.
yeah.
Or
Yeah. I think it might be his. I don't know. I think hopefully this role is more grassroots based because it's, I don't know, chief cricket officer. I have no idea what that means.
True, true.
Hopefully, it might not be something connected with the first team. If it is, it's a ridiculous move. So hopefully, it'll be a bit more, I don't know, development, skill development, or something like that, where he's more involved with the A team or something like that. They have no clarity in typical PCB fashion. They provide no clarity on what the role is. But and speaking of circuses and people going around, Mr. Vabras, who seems to go around in every single position, has now also been given a full paid trip to the Maldives.
I mean, all inclusive hotel, 5-star luxury resort in the Maldives. He's probably, attend a conference. I mean, it's unreal. Like this guy who's had no real qualifications is being funded a trip, a holiday, and I guarantee his family will be joining him. But and it's absurd, right? Like on one hand you're talking about lack of funds, and on the other hand you've sent a Pakistan A team to Australia to play the Bangladesh A team, which by the way they lost to.
Well, they won the first and lost the
They
second.
won the first, lost the second, really close game the second, right? Absurd. I mean, to think about the money involved in sending that team and their whole families and everything to Australia, like, and then to prepare for a series in the subcontinent. One and two, Wahab Riaz going to the Maldives. I mean, I guarantee they're much better conferences in less exciting destinations. That he probably said no to. But look, I don't know what it is. I think he probably called up Mohsin Naqvi and wanted a free holiday, and that's what he got. But coming back to Waqar Younis, right? Like I think you made a good point. I think there is maybe some merit in the fact that someone who knows cricket, who can develop cricket, scout talent better, whatever. But if and it's mainly to help Mohsin Naqvi, who's also, as it happens, the interior minister, which is like the second or third most important cabinet ministerial role in the Pakistan government. So completely understand that him getting daily calls at night from Babar Azam, who's afraid of his job, and then Shaheen Afridi's politics and all that, it's probably taken a toll on him. But I see the role to be twofold. It's all well and good having somebody who understands and knows cricket and who's played the game. But the other key skill here is administrative capabilities, right? Waqar Younis, has he ever been an administrator? No, he's never, right? If you wanted that, then why not Ramiz Raja? Now, I know there's the political reasons why, because Ramiz Raja is Imran Khan's guy. But Ramiz Raja was the guy who has had significant administrative experience. The
Yeah,
2004 India series, when India came to Pakistan, was all Ramiz Raja's doing. He won a Lawrence Award for it, right? Then, and he's a former player, right? So, yeah, and a former captain. So, I mean, there were other players who may not be as high profile from a talent standpoint, but who have
yeah,
played the game and who have administrative experience, who could have been given the role.
yeah. No, I completely agree, and especially someone who's gone round and round, and someone who's had issues with players as well in the past, right? I mean, spare thought for Mohammad Amir, who 6 months ago was kind of out of the team, was convinced to come back under Shaheen's captaincy and a new leadership, and now he's back with Babar Azam and Waqar Younis, the two people who he's fallen out with the most.
Yeah, and I might as well just bring Misbah as chief selector and then just complete the holy trinity, and it's be like karma. Muhammad Ahmed, this is karma. This is what karma looks like. No, you're completely right, and that's Muhammad Ahmed. He's had beef with players. I think the biggest point with him is there've been big rumors and big sort of criticisms that he's played nepotism and favoritism a lot in the team. He kept Safraz Ahmed out of the team, who was clearly your best wicketkeeper and even informed batter, out in favor of a Umar Akmal, a part-time keeper
Yeah,
on Australian conditions. Now, Waqar Younis, as a former fast bowler, knows the pace and bounce of Australia means that
yeah,
you need proper specialist wicket keepers, right? I mean, he should know that. What's the point of having a former player when he's not gonna use his playing experience to inform his decision making? It was absurd, right? So there was clearly
yeah,
favoritism there, right? Um, I remember I was on a flight with a certain player at that time, and I asked the question, and they sort of shrugged and sort of were a bit sheepish about it. So I think there's definitely that beef there. And I hope he doesn't play favoritism. I appreciate he's not close to the team in the same way, but favoritism at that level has much bigger ramifications
Yeah,
than our team performs, right? It destroys an infrastructure. It's a bit like a disease, right? It starts spreading and spreading and spreading, and then suddenly your entire institution is broken down into chaos.
yeah. And it's also demotivating for other people who probably got the qualifications and they just can't get through the system because these same people keep coming back and again and again. So you just can't have new, fresh
Agreed.
thinking, fresh ideas coming in because it's always the same people going round and round and round.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and look, there are some reasons why some players are left out. So I've heard that Wasim Akram is not considered because of Qayyum report, all that. But Waqar Younis was also mentioned in the Justice Qayyum report, right? My point is, like, if there are certain reasons why you're excluding some people that also apply to others, then apply
I mean,
that
you begged Amir to
consistently.
come back in the team. You begged Amir to come back in the team. So
No, no, no.
who's
I
had
no,
his
no,
own?
but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they should be what. I'm just saying keep the same treatment across, or don't have the treatment at all across the board, right? My point being that why not try Wasim Akram in this role, right? The arguments in the past that I have heard have been what I've said just now, but I'm not convinced that is the case, given that Waqar
Yeah,
Younis was also had similar issues, right? So
yeah,
I think Wasim Akram, maybe give Wasim Akram a go. Wasim Akram says a lot that, oh, he's not considered for these roles and all this.
yeah,
A part of me thinks they do approach him, but he doesn't want to get involved with Pakistan cricket. He's enjoying his commentary
yeah,
stint. He's quite successful. He doesn't want to get into the chaos and the expectation and the dirty politics. Fair enough, fair enough. But I just want to make sure that other people are not
yeah,
excluded for reasons that are overlooked when the player has a big name and a big
yeah. Or,
reputation.
or if someone comes in, they probably want to come in with, all hands on. They don't want to come in with one arm tied behind their back and not being able to do what they want to do. And we were kindness is a bit more amicable to some people in that in that manner, and he's more
Yeah,
acceptable. Whereas Wasim might
perhaps.
be, if I come, I'm going to come on my terms, right? And
Yeah, agreed. Like yes men, you're saying basically yes men, and maybe Waqar Younis, like he agreed to come under Misbah despite being senior to Misbah. Maybe he's quite good at being quite agreeable, as you say. Fair enough. But look, I mean, the good thing with Pakistan cricket is you don't need to think of what you're going to cover in the next episode. There is always something that comes out of there that is worth talking about. It may not be the newest thing, it may be recurring the same themes, but there's always something surprising, nonsensical, and it's getting to the point where you don't
yeah,
need Pakistan to be playing in order for Pakistan cricket to be in the news and sort of
yeah,
a big talking point.
yeah, absolutely. There's always enough to talk about without any cricket going on either.
But look, Azad, I think uh, hopefully we see a little more incremental progress across women's cricket, across Pakistan cricket, and hope that Gautam Gambhir continues his transition successfully. But other than that, I mean, looking forward to more cricket. And look, in the meantime, I'm going to open up the floor. If there are any questions, any burning questions, whether who's the greatest, who's better between two players, or or our perspectives of certain rules or various aspects of the game, please feel free to drop them in the comments box or DM us or whatever. We'd be really keen to get ideas, and we're happy to answer and give our perspectives. But we'll keep the content coming, and please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you, Zaid.
Thank, thank you.